position as a police officer in a totally separate jurisdiction, has nothing to do with the Independence Police Department, and therefore it isn't a conflict. Again, it's all about where you all want to set the bar, so that's an option to.
How about directly related to the operation of the city?
Sure.
It's a little further definition.
Yeah, I like that idea. Thank you. Everybody good with that?
Mr. Mayor.
Takes us on to the next page.
Mr.
Kind
Mayor.
of in my back of my head. Oh,
Sorry, I have one more thing, and
Please.
I've been meaning to bring it up for a while now, but it's also on page 11, so I just figured I'd bring it up now. The term domestic partner is listed like 16 times in here, but there's not a really good definition for that term. No, I have my definition, what I think it is, and you all have your own. But it's something that's not recognized by the state of Missouri. It's not recognized by the federal government. There are 5 states that do recognize the term. I think we need a, I'm not saying it shouldn't be in there, I just think we need a better definition of it.
Or I'm impressed with your knowledge of that definition, that 5 states have it. Would you be willing to accept the other 5 states that accept that definition?
I don't know what their
I'm not trying to put you
definition
on the
is.
spot here, but I just wanna get-
I don't know what their definition is, but I do know that the city of Independence, I talked, I spoke to the city manager about this. We do allow people who have a domestic partner, per se, to go on their insurance.
Right.
So, I mean, I think maybe if we got whatever that definition is from HR, we could probably use that, but I don't know what it is exactly. So.
And it's not in your list of definitions, so good point.
No, excellent, yeah. Excellent job. And if you're comfortable, Councilmember, with the definition that HR uses for a domestic partner, then we just slide that in there.
I mean, I'd like to see it first, but I
Right.
think I'll be fine with it.
Mr. Walker's gonna see if he can come up with the term, the definition cities currently use.
Even before we leave tonight,
That depends on you.
we're trying to move it along. I don't really like to stop in probably about 5 minutes and get to item number 2, since we're about halfway through. Okay. Are we on page 13, is that correct? 12. Anything on 12 that have concerns? I didn't have any notes in my section. Does anybody have any notes? All right, then we'll go to 13. And Councilmember McCandless, comment under 116.011B, said it was vague, so go ahead.
So this says, using others to engage in forbidden conduct. I understand what they're trying to say. They're saying using somebody else to do an end run around the rules. So it isn't you, but holy moly, is this vague. And so I am not sure how you end up enforcing that.
That's an excellent question.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, please proceed.
would it be just better to just take that portion out and start with a city official or employee? Just leave it as is.
Yes.
And just scratch using others to engage in forbidden conduct.
Correct.
Would that answer your question, Councilmember?
It's still vague, but maybe less so. Okay.
But I do like your legalese is make someone else make an end around for you. I liked that, so Councilmember, I just wanted to say I like it. All right, anyone else or any thoughts on that? What's your game plan for that one, or do you still need clarity from this group?
Are you saying you want that to be more specific? Is that what I'm hearing?
I understand it on its face. I just think that it's hard to enforce. I don't have anything that can make it easier.
Okay.
I understand that cheating is cheating, whether I do it directly or I get someone else to do it for me. That's I'm sure that that's what they're getting at there. And perhaps the language is fine, I just am asking questions.
Yeah, okay, go ahead. Councilmember.
No, I was saying, I think we leave it alone because of that, you know, I don't know.
Okay, I can live with that.
Way to make it better.
And you just corrected the wording on the bottom of that page, going to page 14. The Board of Ethics determination, there's a comment, I think, from your team, Mr. Cover, on
Yes,
that
sir.
one. So could you expand upon that? You had a strikeout and made an advisory council, is that right?
Sure, so this gets back to the issue that I brought up at the beginning, which was sort of the one general issue between my staff and the Ethics Commission, was sort of whether or not they were the final say and arbiter of these, some of these issues. And so, you know, if you look at the comment, it says, as explained further below, by state law, the Board of Ethics cannot determine if an action violates the Code of Ethics, because in the end, the Code of Ethics is part of the Code of Ordinances, and state law says that only the municipal court can be the arbitrator of violations of city ordinance. So that's been our position on that, which is what it further says. Only municipal court may do so. It may issue advisory opinions. So what our suggested edit is that, you know, is that it issues an advisory opinion, which would then be used to
Go to this, the other.
pursue a case in municipal court. That's the difference in perspective of the statute.
I'm good with that. Is everybody else good with that? Okay. Go ahead, Councilor Engelhardt. I think he's thinking.
Yeah, I know. You see the smoke coming out of my ears. I heard, this was, the Board of Ethics has the power to refer somebody to municipal court or bring a case in municipal court. Is that what this is?
It would have the power to refer it to municipal. I mean, in the end, it would be referred to the city prosecutor, who would make a decision about whether or not to file.
Okay,
That's what would happen.
I'm
They
fine.
can't, they don't
Okay.
have the ability to file the case.
that's all I wanted to know.
Okay.
But this section is basically saying, I can refer myself to the Board of Ethics and say, this is my conundrum. Can you give me an advisory opinion on whether you think this violates?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
And that's a very, very big point. Part of this process that is much different than our current process is citizens now have the opportunity to do that. Before, it had to always go through a city council member, excuse me. If I'm correct on that, Mr. Cover, according to the chart.
There's a few different options depending on what the violation is and
Right.
who is to allegedly violate something, but yeah, generally correct.
And that was the difference that they wanted to make. The committee wanted to make a recommendation that citizens have the right to do that. But obviously being respectful of everyone's interests and needs. Okay. Anything else on that? 116.013, Councilmember McCandless.
Maybe this is a good spot to stop, because I have
Okay.
a number of questions on this one that might.
Okay.
Well, I do want to ask for one thing for consideration on it, though.
Okay.
I wonder if this would be a good place, because I noticed absent in this document, there is no code of ethics for whistleblowers and whistleblower protection. That's an ethics issue. So this would be a good place, I think, to have a provision in there for the whistleblowers' rights, duties.
Okay.
But isn't that
It's in
separate?
state law. It's statutory.
I mean,
Don't worry about it.
What?
It is, I mean, that if you are, yes, it is statutory.
Yes. But it should be included in this document. Something that states that has to be in line with state statute. But there needs to be something in our code of ethics that protect whistleblowers.
Okay.
I would agree with that. Good catch. Okay. We'll come back to page 14. We'll start on section 116.013, page 14, at the next study session in 2 weeks. I wanted to give you some time to talk about the council rules. Can we get the proposed council rule up on the screen by any chance? So we can see it. I don't know if you've got it in the document. Sorry. Or can someone read the proposed? I don't have it in front of me, so
You all should have a copy of it.
we do, yeah.
It's the whole
The whole
document.
thing, okay.
Yeah, we don't have.
I listen, yeah.
The
Please
rest.
forgive me. So we can go into the document and see the revision. And that would be the revision on page 7, is that correct? That's what I'm reading with the blue. I was looking for red, but it's the blue one.
It's two sections. It's
6.
section 6.4 on page 6 and section 6.15 on page 7. Those are the two proposed revisions that were noticed up on the last council meeting agenda under for information only, as required by the rules. They are, these two, again, sticking with the current process, are currently on for the August 21st meeting as a resolution, recognizing that in the interim, you will decide you want to talk about it here. But those are the only two sections that have been noticed up for revisions.
Any comments or suggestions?
Now, we don't normally vote in a study session, so how do we change that to where now study sessions are having votes? This is not the place to vote. Never has been. So, study sessions are for that purpose, to bring information, to research information, answer questions, and get the information we need, so that when we go to a meeting agenda in a regular council meeting, then we can discuss it again and vote.
Sure, I mean, again, these are your rules.
Right.
Collectively. So the way it reads, the way this proposed rule reads currently, says all council requested action items must first be presented at a study session. One member of the council is able to add an item up to the study session agenda. At the study session, 3 members must vote to move that action item to regular meeting agenda. So you would be amending your rules to say this is something you could vote on at study sessions, if you were to adopt this.
And just for clarity, that would be the only thing we would be voting on at study sessions, which is to advance things to the agenda. We wouldn't bring ordinance items or anything else to study sessions.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
So essentially, we're running another council meeting. We're doing business on a study session.
Well, I think, Councilmember, you bring up a good point. If we have a discussion about this, is rather than say 3 members must vote to do it, is I would say something in language like this: 3 members must co-sponsor or recommend through the city council member, or the city clerk, that this ought to be put on there. And then their names will be listed on there as like a co-sponsor like we have on other items. And that way we wouldn't be voting, but it wouldn't move forward until 3 people were signed on to move that item forward.
Can you just clarify why this is necessary, in your opinion? Why do we need to do this way? Traditionally, the study sessions were set by you or the city manager. Now we get to get input into that. We can ask for something to be put on, but and study sessions, by the way, according to the charter, are voluntary. we don't have to come. These are not mandatory meetings, and so, and sometimes people have work conflicts and can't be here. And they choose, work over the study session. But I'm just curious why we feel this is a necessity. To be now turning a study session to conduct business where we're actually voting.
Okay, I agree with you. I say let's take the voting portion out of it. And anyone, because this actually gives more power to you as a council member. Because anyone can bring something to a study session at that point.
Well, I get that, but I still have to get 3 members to approve it to get it on a regular agenda. Right now, I can bring something to agenda. If Bob Sorensen asked me to put something on there for him, I can do that. I can request that and put it on the agenda. But right now, we're going to 3 people that have to vote on it. And so now, who's controlling the agenda? It's not 1 person or 7, it's 3.
Any other thoughts?
Mr. Mayor,
Please proceed.
I don't know, we've just been through this, I don't know, was the 3rd, 4th time. I said the same thing I said the first time, the second time and the 3rd time. I like the way it is. I mean, I like to be able to put some on the agenda to represent the people that elected me, and I don't think I should have to go to another council member to get it put on there. They elected me to work for them, and that's what I do, and that's the reason I put some stuff on there. And I think it's simply, the problem is, there's some stuff on there that people haven't liked, and that's the reason this is trying to be changed again. That's all.
Thank you.
Well, my comment was just to, well, my comment really was to just change the language of, to where it just says that 3 members must notify the city clerk to move an action item to a regular meeting agenda instead of voting here. I think that's a good move to not vote at the study session and just for it to move on. It's basically a committee of the whole is the study session, for a discussion to say, is this warrant to go on to a council? And I'm going on
How much it becomes a committee of 3, not the ability for each district, each council person to bring business to an agenda. It becomes a committee of 3 that decides whether that's worthy to come on to an agenda item. I just think it's wrong. We're all elected. We represent the district. If we want to put something on an agenda, we should be able to do it. That's how business has been run in this city. Why I need to go get 2 people to agree with me to put something on the agenda, I don't understand.
Mr. Mayor.
Please proceed.
So, as an example, the next meeting, I have 2 items on there that are sponsored by me.
Right.
This item is also on there. I think you're the one that sponsored it, correct?
Right.
Your name's not on there.
Okay.
So I have to
think
get
it
it
should be
on.
on there. You're absolutely right.
And there's been other instances where I know that stuff has been sponsored. Basically, they go to city staff, they talk, and it ends up on there somehow. How are we going to work around that,
I think we should add a provision on here that says every item that's brought to the city city manager should in fact have a name put on it if it's put forward by a council member. Everything go through the same process. You make a great point.
That wasn't exactly my point, was we don't need to do that. I mean, one person should be able to do it.
Okay, I understand. Please proceed.
I appreciate that bringing these items to the study session allows for a certain amount of public scrutiny and discussion and discipline around making sure that items are consistent with existing ordinance, that they are legal, that they have been vetted through the appropriate departments. Now, you can argue, well, you can just vote it down, but it is, I think that it just does not show the thoughtfulness of the discipline required to make rules. I appreciate being able to ask questions in a study session so that I understand both the intent of my colleagues as well as making sure that we aren't doing things that contravene other aspects of the city. So I appreciate things coming to a study session. Very rarely are there things that we do that are so urgent that they cannot wait one more week for us to have thoughtful discussion. I mean, I would be willing to say 2 people instead of 3, but I do think that there is a certain methodical discipline to bringing things forward for discussion. Not everything needs to be immediate. Thank
Well,
you.
Again, I'm just trying to come up with a compromise. So based on that, thought that it is productive and helpful to bring items to study sessions, what if that was the hoop? That it had to go to a study session first. There's no voting on from there, but it has to go to the study session so that it can have some public scrutiny and discussion, as Councilmember Candace pointed out, but then it's up to that council member to then move it on or not.
Yeah, I think that's not the intent of this discussion.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Cover.
Sure.
I don't mean to be so abrupt, I hope I wasn't.
These are your rules, so I'm just throwing these out there.
Did I come across abruptly there? I will certainly apologize.
There's no need to apologize. These are your rules. I'm just trying to give you all options.
Mr. Cover's a big boy. He's all right. When he says he's all right, take him seriously.
All right, I mean,
I'm
I'm just,
perfectly fine, thank you.
yeah.
But actually, I like that idea, actually. And you may feel the same way, and I appreciate that. I'm in an interesting spot right now because, as some of you know, not that I'm at liberty to say much, but my dad's taken advantage of the city-provided health insurance. And it was a few years ago that I ran for office. I started coming to council meetings because my mom and dad asked me to, because they were trying to put people in the seats to try to save their health insurance. And they did. The retirees did. And I don't want to steal anybody's thunder, but Karen DeLucci at the time was the only member of the council that actually listened to the retirees. And if there hadn't been one council member that listened, they wouldn't have health insurance today. And that's a true story. So there is some meaning in the other side of the coin on this one for me right now. And I know people are passionate about both sides of this. But both sides have legitimate arguments.
Well, I've got an amendment I could offer to it. If it's an issue regarding health insurance for retirees, it can go on by one person. I'm just teasing a little bit, my friend. But, all right, so go ahead.
I'm really more in favor of, and would agree with most comments by Councilman Candace. I'm of the general opinion that we need to, you know, if there's something someone wants to bring forward for this council decision, and it's one person bringing that forward, you know, then I'd like to hear their thought processes and what they're thinking before, you know, I really understand it, before it gets on the actual agenda for an actual council meeting. I want to understand what's behind that. And then, you know, and then I might very easily agree to say, yeah, let's move it along. But just to put it on an actual council agenda, there needs to be some threshold in my mind for, you know, anything to get on an actual council agenda as opposed to just because, you know, I mean, like Councilmember Hobart said, if we all didn't get along as well as we do, there would be, you know, there could be, you know, any council member could come up with a dozen things on any given agenda and put it on there, and we'd have to deal with every one of them, whether it was frivolous or whatever. I just don't think that's not where we're at, thankfully, but it could be. I mean, and why would we want to entertain that? You know, so I just think if we have some discussion and then say, oh yeah, that makes sense, so let's move it along, you know? And so that's what we guys want.
Anyone else? Go ahead.
I still, if all due respect, if any one of my colleagues brings a resolution to an agenda worthy of their time, whatever they felt like was important for the discussion, it's not, it should not be something that is frivolous. We should have the ability to discuss it and see what about it that was important enough to put it on the agenda, be heard, because like I said, anybody can bring a resolution to us. We are still a representative form of government, which means there are 7 of us, not 3 that are going to make decisions, 7. And each individual, each district has someone that represents their interests. That's not frivolous. That's something that they felt would advance or do something for their district. Preserving, you know, a representative form of democracy is important to me. As a veteran, as someone who loves this country, with all due respect, if I want to bring an agenda item that I think is important or has value to my city, I don't want to go and ask for 3 people to support the idea. I want the 7 of us to discuss it and decide, not 3. So this idea that it's just not worth your time to listen to, I take issue with that. I think everybody's opinion, everybody's ideas, everybody's creativity, everybody's solution for the many issues and things we're trying to accomplish, they mean something. And that's why we have elections. I mean, are we just gonna get down to just have 3 people run the city? Is that what we're gonna do? Let's get away from this. Let's let every district be represented, and the 3 of you represent the entire city. But that's why I always tell everyone in my district that I have 4 people that represent you. 4, not 3, 4. And we need to act as though their voice, their concern, whether it's District 4, 3, 2, 1, that it's all important. There's always a reason for these items to come up. So, no, I think minority issues, we've got to look at them and we've got to hear them, and all of us need to hear them. All of your input, not some of the input. I want you all to bring input. So, I know I'm a little passionate about it, but that's how democracy works.
But what this does is this actually gives you 2 opportunities to have that discussion as opposed to 1.
Maybe, Jared, maybe. If you don't like it in the study session, you can kill it here and then it doesn't get heard. Did you see how many people here tonight? Compare that to a regular council meeting. A lot of people, they don't come to these. They don't hear these. They don't always pay attention to them. They know that the business of the city gets handled on council nights. These are discussion nights. And voting on it and deciding whether it's good enough for it to be heard on an agenda. And we've had nights where we've had lots of resolutions, lots of ordinances. We're not going to be able to do this in one night. You're going to have 2, maybe 3 study sessions. I don't know. That's a lot of information you're saying we want to do. What about consent agenda items? Are you going to exclude them? I mean, just let's quit tampering with the things that works for the people who elect us. This is what their expectations are. They've said no to this, to us, and we voted that way. And I'm going to continue to vote that way. Let everyone have their opportunity to do the business to move the city forward. That's all I ask.
Councilmember.
So I hear Councilmember Steinmeier's concerns about minority opinion, which I value very much. However, I also think that we are strongest when we have the opportunity to work on ideas together, and the study session affords us the ability to say, what about this? Have we considered that? At a city council meeting, the item comes up, it's a vote. It doesn't, there's no place for deliberative discussion. You can make an amendment, but you have to be prepared to make the amendment in the time because it's going to come for a vote. I actually don't have any objection to these items coming to the study session for discussion, for input. Then I can make a more informed decision when it comes time for a vote. I don't even care if we bring it, one person can bring it to a study session and one person can bring it to the agenda, but I need the place for a thoughtful, deliberative discussion.
Thank you. And let's be reminded, I'm sorry, but we extended out how much time we have to give the city staff to be able to put the items on the agenda. We get them farther in advance than we've ever done. We have to, I take time to research and do everything. I'll open it up, I read the cover page, I go through the information. I have questions, I'll call you. So we've always done it, but we extended that out to give us more time to look at stuff. Now that's not enough time. We got to bring it to a study session, we have to talk more about it. I don't know, man. It's like, I take this part-time job very serious. I put a lot of hours into it. I make no excuses for if I fall short, but we've extended, now we're asking for more time, more discussion. We call each other. I think we do everything we can to bring the business and make sure that the points that are needed to be discussed in the agenda items at the council meeting, that we do those things. So, I mean, I don't know what else to do. Do we need to extend it out 3 weeks to get an item on there and let us all look at it? A month? I don't know. Yeah, I just think this is, I think we do a pretty good job. I'm not saying it's perfect, but I think we do a pretty good job. Doing it this way makes no sense.
Anyone else? Go ahead, please proceed.
Mr. Cover, is there any reason why we can't do a legal vote on, as been discussed in a study session? I think I understand or know the answer, but specifically, can we vote in a study session to move an item forward?
You can vote in a study session to move it forward. I mean, you currently give direction. I don't know that, there's, the difference now is it would be, direction can really come from, really just one person. At this point, it would take 3. So yes, in the end, you're not voting on the substantive item, no matter what. You're voting whether or not to have a discussion about it. So yeah, I don't see an issue with voting on whether or not to have it on the agenda. Whether or not you all think that's necessary is up to you.
Thank you for that. So with that, I've been up here to where I've experienced the items put on by different council members, some here, some that are not here, that have not been fully vetted. They weren't fully vetted to the city manager entirely. They were not fully vetted to, let's say, the fire chief. They weren't vetted with the police chief. They weren't vetted with any city departments, but they were put on here in a way to counteract something that they didn't think things were going in a political way or in a way that they thought was appropriate. And it wasn't appropriate for them to be brought up to the city council for a vote, which I guess it was appropriate because they had the allowable use to do it, put an item on the agenda, but it wasn't vetted. It wasn't vetted at all. And it created quite a havoc going through some of these meetings. So I understand the process of why we're trying to do this. I do understand representing a district and district representatives here to want to be able to bring an item to this full body consideration. I've been up here for quite a while, and I could probably count on one hand how many times I've put one on here that was such an emergency that had to be done immediately. So I'm going to offer the advice that if there is such an item that needs to be brought to this council, that the process goes to a study session. And I'll even amend back to where it goes to the study session first, then it goes to the full body without being off, if you will. But I think there is a process that needs to be done. And then if there is an emergency status that a council member or so, our district representatives, if there's something to such an emergency, that we can also write to the city clerk, to the city manager, and have one put on as well. But I've been through the process, and I'll tell you what, it sucks, and it's not appropriate, and it's not right to have gone through the things that we went through a couple summers ago. It was all politically motivated. There was no background, and no study, and no research done. So, hate to say it, but I am for a little bit of a process, but I can still represent my district quite rigorously with the process.
Thank you, Councilman. Anyone else? Anyone else, other comments? I agree with you completely, Councilmember. From your perspective, you've lived it and seen it. I agree with Councilmember McCandless. We need a vetting process. We need to make sure that things are legal. Are there provisions that we can bring things immediately to the council immediately right now? Yes, there are. And that provides for that. But in my opinion, no one's voice is stymied by this because everyone has the same voice to bring it to a study session, bring it to this council. A council meeting is a business meeting. If we bring something to it, it is not vetted. It is not the I's dotted and the T's crossed. We could be putting the city at risk. And we need to make sure that we've looked at it ahead of time. That's one of the reasons with this document here on ethics. Could I have put on an agenda? Absolutely. Was I going to ask my colleagues to do that? No, I was not. I wanted you to have a lot of time to look at this, to say, we like it, we don't like it, put it aside, drop it. So I agree with Councilmember Perkins. There needs to be a process. We need to come up with that process. And we'll see if we want to vote at the council meeting, or excuse me, at the study session, or I'm in favor of, you don't have to vote there, because I agree with Councilmember, Councilmember Steinmeier. I agree with you completely. There shouldn't be voting there at the study session, because if one member is not there and they don't get a chance to vote, then they may be at a disadvantage. So I'm in favor of the idea of co-sponsors, 3 co-sponsors to say, I want to move this forward, and they can be selected at any time prior to the deadline to put on the agenda. So that's my thoughts on it. And we're at 8 o'clock, unless anybody else has any comments. I don't want to cut anybody off. They can certainly have their opportunities to respond. But
Mr. Mayor?
yes, absolutely.
If we're going to keep the conversation going just a little bit, I would make the recommendation that it just goes to the study session. That gives the council person who wants to have that item on for the agenda to be able to do complete full homework. We can get with department heads, we can get with whoever we need to within the city. They can present themselves to the full body, or have the city manager or department head present that information, and then we just automatically move it to the agenda. If that's in the process, or the spirit of let's make sure we vet this first, I think
that would be in the spirit of it.
Can you give me an example? Because I'm a little foggy after 2 hours.
Oh, sure. I want to put an item on an agenda. I bring it to the study session. I present it, or have the city manager present it, or whatever appropriate department present it.
Right.
We can have questions. You can ask me questions like a study session, and then it automatically moves on.
Mr. Mayor?
Please proceed.
My objection to co-sponsor is I may vote to allow things to go for a city council vote, but I don't necessarily want to be a co-sponsor. Does that make sense? There's a distinction. If I'm a co-sponsor, there is the implication that I agree. That's not the same thing as allowing it to go to a vote.
Right.
So, I just want to be clear on that distinction. Thank you.
No, that's a great distinction. My philosophy is, if you're going to vote for it, at least your name needs to be listed at the bottom. These 3 people voted to bring it forward. So that the public is aware and transparent with regards to who brought this forward. So you can give that some thought. We can discuss this again. We don't have to finish it tonight, but I wanted everybody to get out of here by 8 o'clock over there. And so with that being said, if there's no other further discussion, we'll call this meeting adjourned. Thank you.